Hi there. Thank you for being here today. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by emotions you couldn't explain, or like something inside you was broken, but you didn't know why, this story is for you. Because healing doesn't start with having all the answers. It starts with one brave moment of truth, one step toward understanding. Today's story is called You're Not Broken. Finding Hope After Trauma. It's a journey through pain, silence, fear, and ultimately, a quiet, powerful kind of strength that grows from within. Let's begin. The silence was the worst part, not the absence of sound, but the heavy, suffocating silence within me. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was a void, a constant hum of dread that vibrated through my bones. I called it broken. For years, that's all I thought I was. Irrevocably, fundamentally broken. The edges of my soul were shattered, the pieces scattered and lost, impossible to reassemble. I remember the first time I felt it, though I didn't understand what it was then. I was 8 years old. We were on vacation. A family trip to the beach. 1 minute. I was building a sand castle with my dad. The next, a rogue wave crashed over us, pulling me under. The panic was instant, visceral. I couldn't breathe. The sand swirling around me, the weight of the water pressing down. My dad pulled me out, coughing and sputtering. But the fear stayed. It wasn't just the fear of the ocean. It was a general, pervasive anxiety that clung to me like a shroud. I started having nightmares, vivid and terrifying. Monsters under the bed weren't just childhood fantasies. They were real, tangible threats that stalked me in my sleep. I became withdrawn, clinging to my mother's side, terrified of being alone. My grades slipped. I lost interest in my friends, and I retreated into myself. My parents, bless their hearts, didn't know what to do. They chalked it up to a bad dream, a phase I would grow out of. They tried to comfort me, reassure me, but nothing seemed to work. The fear was always there, lurking beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. As I got older, the nightmares faded, but the anxiety remained. It manifested in different ways. Panic attacks before exams, social anxiety that made it impossible to speak in class, a constant feeling of unease that I couldn't shake. I started self-medicating, first with alcohol, then with anything I could get my hands on. The substances dulled the pain, numbed the fear, but they also created a whole new set of problems. My 20s were a blur of bad decisions, failed relationships, and dead-end jobs. I bounced from one city to another, trying to escape the feeling that I was being suffocated by my own life. I was always running, always searching for something I couldn't name, a way to feel normal. One particularly dark night, after a particularly heavy dose of whatever pills I could find, I found myself standing on the edge of a bridge. The city lights shimmered below, a dizzying, hypnotic display. It would be so easy, I thought, to just let go, to finally silence the voices in my head. But something stopped me, a flicker of hope, a tiny spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. I don't know where it came from, but it was enough to pull me back from the brink. I stumbled home, shaking and sobbing, and finally, for the first time in years, I asked for help. The road to recovery was long and arduous. Therapy was brutal, forcing me to confront the demons I had been running from for so long. It was during one of those sessions that my therapist first mentioned PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. The words hung in the air, unfamiliar and yet familiar. You experienced a traumatic event at a young age, she said gently. The wave at the beach. It may seem like a small thing, but for a child, it can be incredibly frightening, and it sounds like you never really processed it. Processed it. That was the key, wasn't it? I had buried the fear, suppressed the memories, and tried to pretend it never happened. But trauma doesn't just disappear. It festers, it grows, It poisons everything it touches. The diagnosis was a revelation. It wasn't that I was broken. It was that I was wounded. And wounds can heal. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. I started EMDR therapy, movement desensitization and reprocessing. It was strange and uncomfortable, forcing me to relive the traumatic event while simultaneously focusing on external stimuli. But slowly, gradually, it started to work. The fear began to lose its grip. The memories became less vivid, less overwhelming. I also started practicing mindfulness, learning to be present in the moment, to observe my thoughts and feelings without judgment. It was a difficult skill to master, my mind constantly racing, rehashing the past, worrying about the future. But with practice, I started to find moments of peace, moments of stillness amidst the chaos. I learned about the importance of self-care, of nurturing my body and mind. I started exercising regularly, eating healthy foods, and getting enough sleep. I cut out the alcohol and the drugs, replacing them with healthier coping mechanisms. It wasn't a linear process. There were setbacks, relapses, days when I felt like I was back at square one, but I kept going, one step at a time, one day at a time. I learned to forgive myself for my mistakes, to accept my imperfections, and to celebrate my progress. I started reconnecting with my family, mending the relationships that had been strained by my addiction and my emotional unavailability. I apologized for my behavior, expressed my gratitude for their support, and vowed to be a better son, a better brother, a better friend. I even started dating again, cautiously, tentatively. I was terrified of getting hurt, of repeating the patterns of the past, but I was also determined to find love, to build a healthy, fulfilling relationship. And then I met Sarah. She was kind, compassionate, and incredibly patient. She understood my struggles, my fears, and my insecurities. She didn't try to fix me. She accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. With Sarah's support, I started to truly believe that I was capable of healing, of building a life worth living. We started a small business together, a bookstore café, a place where people could come to relax, connect, and find solace in the written word. It wasn't always easy. There were still days when the anxiety crept in, when the memories resurfaced, when I felt like the broken little boy on the beach. But now I had the tools to cope, the support system to lean on, and the self-awareness to recognize when I needed help. One sunny afternoon, Sarah and I were sitting outside the cafe, sipping coffee and watching the world go by. A little girl was playing in the park across the street, building a sandcastle with her father. I watched them for a moment, a wave of emotion washing over me. It wasn't fear or sadness or even nostalgia. It was peace. I realized that I had come a long way from that day on the beach. I was no longer broken. I was whole, and even though the scars of my trauma would always be there, they were a part of me, a reminder of how far I had come and how strong I had become. The silence inside wasn't a void anymore. It was filled with the quiet strength of resilience, the gentle hum of hope. The journey wasn't just about healing from the trauma. It was about rediscovering myself, forging a new identity from the ashes of the old. It was about learning to live authentically, to embrace my vulnerability, and to connect with others on a deeper level. The years of therapy had stripped away the layers of defense mechanisms and coping strategies I had built up over time, revealing the raw, unfiltered core of who I was. And what I found wasn't broken. It was simply wounded, yearning to be healed. I started volunteering at a local mental health clinic, sharing my story with others who were struggling with trauma and addiction. It was incredibly rewarding to be able to offer hope and support to those who felt lost and alone. I realized that my experiences, as painful as they had been, had given me a unique perspective and a deep empathy for others. I learned that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. By sharing my story, I was able to connect with others on a deeper level, creating a sense of community and belonging. I realized that we are all interconnected, that our struggles and triumphs are shared experiences that bind us together. My relationship with Sarah deepened as well. We learned to communicate openly and honestly, to share our fears and insecurities without judgment. We created a safe and supportive space where we could be vulnerable and authentic with each other. Our love wasn't just a romantic connection. It was a deep and profound friendship built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. We started traveling, exploring new cultures and experiencing new adventures. We hiked through the mountains of Nepal, swam in the crystal clear waters of the Caribbean, and explored the ancient ruins of Rome. We learned to embrace the unknown, to step outside of our comfort zones, and to live life to the fullest. The bookstore café became a thriving hub for the community. We hosted book clubs, poetry slams, and open mic nights. We created a space where people could come to share their stories, to express their creativity, and to connect with others who shared their passions. It was more than just a business. It was a sanctuary, a place of healing and connection. One evening, a young man came into the café looking lost and dejected. He sat alone at a table, staring blankly at the wall. I approached him cautiously, offering him a cup of coffee and a listening ear. He told me his story, a tale of trauma, addiction, and despair. I listened patiently, without judgment, offering words of encouragement and hope. I shared my own story, letting him know that he wasn't alone, that recovery was possible. He started coming to the café regularly, attending the support groups and participating in the open mic nights. He slowly began to open up, to share his feelings, and to connect with others. He found a sense of belonging, a community of people who understood what he was going through. Months later, he came to me with a smile on his face, telling me that he had finally found sobriety, that he was rebuilding his life, and that he was grateful for the support he had received. It was moments like these that made all the struggles worthwhile, that reminded me of the power of healing and connection. Years passed. Sarah and I got married, surrounded by our family and friends. We continued to run the bookstore café, to travel the world, and to support our community. We adopted 2 children, a boy and a girl, who filled our lives with joy and laughter. I still had my moments of anxiety, my triggers, my flashbacks, but I had learned to manage them, to cope with them, and to not let them define me. I had transformed my trauma into a source of strength, a catalyst for growth, and a foundation for a life of purpose and meaning. One day, my daughter asked me about my scars. She traced her fingers along the lines on my arms, her eyes filled with curiosity. I sat her down and told her my story, the story of the wave, the addiction, the therapy, and the healing. I told her that scars are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign of strength, a reminder of the battles we have fought and the victories we have won. I told her that it's okay to be vulnerable, to be imperfect, and to ask for help when we need it. I told her that we are all connected, that we all have the power to heal, and that we all deserve to live a life of joy and fulfillment. As I looked into her innocent eyes, I realized that my journey was not just about healing myself. It was about creating a better world for her, a world where mental health is valued, where trauma is understood, and where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The broken man was gone. In his place was something stronger, something new, something beautiful born from the ashes of pain. Thank you for listening. If this story touched something inside you, if you've ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or like healing was out of reach, please remember, you are not broken, you are healing, and healing is not a straight line, it's a journey. If you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out, talk to someone you trust, find a support group, or simply take that first small step toward help, because your story matters, your voice matters, and you deserve a life filled with peace, connection, and hope. If you found this story meaningful, consider liking, subscribing, or sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. You never know whose life it might touch. Until next time, take care of your heart, be kind to your mind, and never forget, you are not alone.